Welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings Here in Mendham. Just an observing device of, can do some kind of, calculating, logic and whatnot. But that's it. It's, just one man's opinion. Frankly, I obviously think it's more than just that, but, can't say that without offending somebody. So who cares? So I'll say it anyway. Yeah, you're all idiots, and I'm really smart. There, it didn't hurt. Shit. More conversation about what it is to be human on Earth, and how to get there quicker. I suppose some of it's about the fact that you spend this time, you learn this crap. You observe the same shit happening over and over again. You draw some conclusions, blah, blah, blah. And, part of my job here is to figure out some way to compose some sort of thing, some sort of conversation or something, some images, some strategy that I throw this thing at you, this blah, and somehow your brain works better, and it gets to do this logic thing and figures out, oh yeah, torture is bad, I get that, even if it's not in my brain, if it's in some other yeah, it's bad, yeah. Anyway, that's it seems like a pretty meager task. It shouldn't be like, oh, that's so difficult. It should be pretty easy, but it ain't. And one of the thoughts that popped into the head was the fact that I've said this to people. I say this, I've been saying it for a few years now. Is that you really can't control the world. You can just control how you react to it. So your interactions are really just about your reactions. And obviously you can make something worse, or you can make something less worse, kind of a thing. And it's all based on your reactions. And the fact is you can't control them in the sense, but you can control in this way where you're the very mechanisms that's causing it also creates this insight into a strategy to defeat the problem. And so it's like if you were taking medication and the bottle says, don't eat for 4 hours before taking the medication, or some sort of rule, and you're hungry. Well, you overcome your hunger because you see this greater purpose of having the medication work, and you successfully defeat whatever it is you're taking it for. And so we can, have a thought, and that thought can change how we react. Now, it doesn't change the fact that you're hungry, and so that's the downside. But it gives you the power, to do something other than react to the hunger by eating. And so a lot of our dispositions are advocacy for something. We can still have some impulse, and we can have a thought that tells us, well, the impulse needs to be our strategy has to be is that, yes, we accept its existence, but we're not going to act on it. And so that's the strength of this philosophical stuff, is that it does give you a capacity to understand your psychology to some extent, and to find mechanisms to work around what you might call some bad programming. So I would argue that I'm full of bad programming, and I have all kinds of sensual or sensation reactions to things, and I have to constantly find some excuse to ignore those feelings and pretend it's all right, so to speak. You know, that I'm not doomed and this isn't shit. And so I do that to some extent in my life. So that really isn't the subject of the video, but it's always the same subject in the sense the subject is me stating something that's obvious to me, okay, that it's really cruel and stupid and ignorant to have children, and it's cruel, stupid, and ignorant to think nature is a beautiful place, and it's just all charming how, you know, spectacular it functions, when it's in fact, you know, a meat grinder. And frankly, meat grinder doesn't really say it because it's a torture mill. It's constantly creating bad moments and bad days, and for feeling organisms. And I'm not saying you should panic. I'm not saying I want you to feel bad about it, but sort of the truth is if you can't manifest any of that empathy, if you can't feel any of their pain, you'll just go on, you know, playing your game without paying any attention. And so that's the difference between us in some sense, and that's a very hard difference to get over, is that I felt the problem before I understood the problem. So I didn't feel right on Earth, and I sought to understand some reasons why I didn't feel right. And the reasons are all negative. You know, I'm not in a good place. It's not me that's broken, it's the world that's broken, and that's just the truth. My first impulse was to blame me and say I was somehow dysfunctional because I wasn't just smoothly playing the game, and I thought there was something wrong with it. And no, it turns out no. Sorry, I'm not the sicko. No, the world is. So anyway, I mean, it was perfectly reasonable for my basically logical brain, okay, a brain that's actually calculating correctly, to add up the numbers and say it doesn't add up to a positive number. We're not winning. Was a simple conclusion. All right, so anyway, so that's the dilemma, is that I already sense the problem, and so I don't even have to understand it because I sense it. And the problem is you don't sense it, so you have to understand it to, you know, to understand your obligation to vote against it, not for it. Even though your impulse is to say, rah rah, let's go, go, go. Let's be stoic. Heroes. Fighting the fight. Yeah. No, surrender. It's time to surrender, morons. All right, anyway. So let's play this video. Yeah, I don't know if it's on the subject or not. It's just so difficult. Attempting to explain something unpleasant to understand. You can't really do that with most people. They really don't want to play along with understanding things that are wrong about either the world or them. That's the even harder part, right? When you're criticizing them. You're an idiot. Oh, well, they're not going to listen. No. So anyway, all right, let's jump to an appropriate position and see what this guy has to say. See if the volume's right. You know, it seemed kind of early on, you know, like my first memories, frankly, of how pleasurable certain states of arousal could be. Yeah, that's a good beginning. Anyway, so just sort of pointing out in the video that yes, I spent an awful lot of time of my life, you know, just chasing these sensations and wondering why, not so much wondering why, let's say, just feeling quite isolated, and the whole fact that it's all private, it's all, you know, this negative thing, this taboo, you know, it's nasty in some way, and it's all these negative things. And that was a little jarring to my psychology, because I internalized that as, well, then I must be, you know, I'm wrong because I don't see why. You know, I'm not, my brain isn't seeing the reason why this is something I should be ashamed of, or this, you know, all these things. And so it was an automatic isolator and separator from any notion that culture was going to be my friend. You know, that somehow being civilized was going to be fun. It seemed like it was just going to be a big fat pile of turd. And yeah, it turns out that way.
That what is a sanctioned pleasure just isn't much. Yeah.
So yeah, the real world isn't much fun. You know, the only world that had any fun in it was my private world of my fantasies and my, you know, feelings, and everything you did, you know, that was sanctioned behavior was toil and irritating and unpleasant. Even wearing clothes, I did not like wearing clothes. Anyway, so even back then, you know, I didn't like it. But I didn't like either idea, right? I didn't like the idea of being naked, you know, because that would be, you know, embarrassing and weird. But I didn't like wearing clothes either. So it just, in a sense, just demonstrated to me that there was no good answers. You know, I'm just not made for this living thing, you know.
The society seemed to be exactly the opposite in terms of the norms were to, you know, we used to have a lot of caterpillars in Louisiana.
Alright, so just going through how, you know, this migrated, this understanding of how my personal identity, you know, wasn't similar to the identity of these people living these fake lives. I didn't see why a person who felt like me would live that life without protesting. It just ended up going to everything, including my observation is that there's, you know, even the creepy little bugs were creepy little bugs, but they were a thing, you know, and everything seemed to be just as entitled to preservation as I was. I didn't see any reason to believe some things are entitled to destruction and brutality, and somehow I was entitled to something different. So that duality, or that just created a bunch of dissonance in my brain saying, well, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, I didn't do anything to earn privilege. And if you can't respect the bug, then how are you going to respect me? Because I kind of felt inside my brain I wasn't worthy of anything more than the bug. The bug might earn more. I might have found the bug more impressive than I was, in the sense that it has all these little features and it's functioning and it's doing its job and it doesn't have anybody to help it, and there's no mommy and there's no this and there's no infrastructure, and it's doing just fine. So I was almost like I was the unworthy one and the bug was the worthy one. And it just seemed like somehow, again, culture failed because culture wasn't recognizing that this isn't fair. Something like that. So, like I said, my psychology bent into this philosophy so quickly.
18 years trying to program a robot that, you know, you can't program very well.
So I'm just talking about, why would you choose that if you have other video games to play, right? So if there's all these other video games on the shelf, why would you pick that Married with Children one? You know, why would you want the job, you know, of worrying about everything you say and do, because it's going to fuck up this little monster and he's going to become an axe murderer because you said the wrong words, you know, because you got angry at the wrong time, you hurt its little feelings and all that kind of crap. Why would somebody choose that? So obviously it doesn't seem like it's a choice. It's some sort of default people fall into. It's like they step backwards and fall into it because they're afraid, you know, that they can't play a real game. So they gotta just fall back into the, you know, I'll just pretend it's nature's fault. It's like a Piro saying, you know, his sperm made babies, not him. You know.
The wife, and they're doing all kinds of other crap, and the family is just to make it look like they're one of them.
So,
You know,
so I took it even a little more insidious in the sense I said, well, maybe this is about bearding. You know, people are just kind of hiding behind their family life so they can get away with all kinds of other shenanigans, and they can maintain this idea that they're good players in the game. Because you do see an awful lot of that, right? All these liars and, you know, the politicians, all these people, you know, to have almost it all, and then they throw it all away on silly nonsense, you know. Yeah, you know, Mike Tyson raping women. What the fuck? You know, like that was necessary? You know, you just gotta, what the fuck? You know, so, you know, clearly, you know, people are just so broken.
they're just
Okay, I gotta jump ahead. That's the plan.
a movie or some kind of thing being there, but it's really not all that. So that's a trap, you know, our brain keeps creating for.
So it's sort of like the idea you get what you want, and, you know, then you can't do much with it. That memory is almost weaker than the memory of the times when you failed, because those still have hope tied to them. Or, you know, they still have some kind of magical ending tied to them. You know, so all the times where you almost got laid, you know, you can complete it because, oh yeah, instead of saying that, I said this. You know, and this, and this happened, and it was, you know, really great and fun and great, and everything turned out great. And so you can still contrive that into a happily ever after almost, where if you actually were successful and you completed it, then you're kind of just stuck with that memory, and you can't do anything to make it better or improve it or to fix it, because it's a real thing that happened, and so it's sort of stuck with its defects because it won't be perfect. It didn't go exactly perfectly or something. And even if it was perfect, it's still just that. It's just a memory of some perfect moment I had. Well, what does that do for me right now? It doesn't do much for you at all. But the fantasy of, you know, completing some other project has more hope tied to it. So it is, you know, it's very complicated, but I'm just saying the psychology runs on, is fueled by, really keeps you pushing forward by giving you some sort of illusion that there will be some complete answer. And unfortunately, life doesn't provide that. The reality will not be a complete answer. But the illusion is all you need to get through your life.
For us to keep
Okay, jump ahead.
feel compelled, feel entitled to make another copy of themselves.
So yeah, so then I was talking about how the ego thing or something, you know, because even if even if I wasn't disinterested in programming a kid and doing all this other stuff, it was my standards were just too high. I mean, I would expect myself to be performing very well before I would, you know, even think about creating a copy based on my blueprint. And so even though I had some functions that were, you know, better than average, I had a lot of functions below average. You know, I was basically a psychotic. Anyway, you know, I'm very uncomfortable anyway. And so I knew I didn't want to breed that into somebody else. And then when you look at the people who are breeding, you know, and you got to say, gee, they don't have any standard at all, do they? You know, it really isn't they're really not being objective and making any kind of sensible statement about what their expectations are about what kind of horse they're going to put in the race, because they're not. First off, they're not genetically making a good horse. They're just, it's plow horse and a donkey, isn't going to win the Belmont Stakes or something. So, the plan seems broken right from the start, and you just wonder what kind of ego these people must have, and what their ego is built out of. Why do they think they're worthy? They merit copying, because I couldn't. I mean, short of perfection, you really are stuck with what I'm going to accept all of these, less than good enough materials I'm going to make this out of. So it's the idea that they will actually make their house out of manure, is just, that doesn't quite fit.
But it's just, so I can't really, maybe there is some instinctive need to cuddle.
Oh, so I'm talking about women there. Just because, okay, the man argument, I'm saying, okay, they're all liars and it's all, failure compensation. Okay, that men with kids are just, I'm just going to pretend now. Yep, I've given up totally on having a life, and now I'm just going to pretend and walk my way through the rest of my meager existence. And so, they just gave up. But what is it for women, because they're still the driving force in most of the advanced cultures anyway. They're the ones where, they have any kind of success for a husband. This is what they find to do with their time, and I guess the husband basically just says, I don't care, do whatever you want. You want to have kids, go ahead. Just don't expect me to, and that's sort of the game being played for a lot of people. Is as long as I don't have to, be distracted from my career and my life, go ahead, have your family thing. And every now and then I'll take a photo with it. But let's not pretend I'm interested. But women, something else going on there.
It's not funny anymore. So that's the part you gotta watch out for. The fact that it smells good, but it ain't gonna eat very well.
Well, it's a good enough line. I don't know exactly what I was talking about though. So anyway. I do have a part in here where I'm talking about you got to just kind of play with, success. You almost don't want to. You don't want to step into the trap of it. You just want to, steal the cheese. And it's kind of interesting how life works that way. You really don't want married and with children. You want to evade that with some strategy that gets you everything you would have wanted from that without all the liabilities.
A shelf, it's certainly one I'd consider. I mean, I probably have better.
Okay, so I was just talking about the fantasies that you would choose to live your life and how simple they would be, for me anyway. Play some game, fuck some bitches, play the game, fuck the bitches, just some sort of thing like that where you're doing both things, where you're, taking a little break, hit a few golf balls, then go back to ball and the bitch, and that kind of thing. And that would be all it would be made out of. My perfect life, would just spiral in that little narrow bit of entertainment. So I'm naturally easy to entertain, you could argue, in a way. I don't need a complicated game to play.
Fantasies, then that. But that's one of them anyway. And
jumping
it's
ahead.
so dangerous. Like I said, I mean, you're, to escape, without all the terrible things that can happen to you.
Oh, so just talking about this fact that you live and learn and do all this stuff, and it, you really have to be so lucky to not have been crushed, killed, and destroyed. And who it's almost like, I don't know. So, I can compare it to all the thoughts I would have if I ever won the Olympics. I'd be thinking things like, well, how many other people got polio, and they would have won, and and so I'd be searching for the true winner, because I would be, I think, quite reasonably recognizing, oh, it's only because I was, 3 inches taller than that other guy. If he was born 3 inches taller, he would have beat the shit out of me. That kind of crap. And it's just, it's in my opinion, that's logical and fair. Yeah, and so you're stuck with it. It's logical and fair to recognize that this wasn't a fair fight, and until we can construct a fair fight, I really don't want, label of winner, because it just wasn't a fair fight.
Circumstances that end up building character. So,
all right. So I'm talking about, you're going to have kids. Then, if you're saying you're going to do it because you have this great love and you're going to devote all of this passion to their wonderful construction, and you're going to do all these things right. Well, how do you know what right is in the first place? I mean, what qualifies you? Have you thought about what the right thing to do is? And I just point out what I think is perfectly agreeable psychological BS, the psychobabble. That the truth is that, frankly, to build character, you're going to have to let your kid fuck up. You're going to have to cut your puppet strings and let the thing be independent and make mistakes, because they're the only ones they're going to learn from. They're not going to learn when your ideas fail. They're going to learn when their own ideas fail. That's going to give them the humility and the awareness and the fear, of failure that a person of character needs. And so what's your plan? You really think you're going to just watch your kid fail? You're going to allow that to happen because you love them? Well, my argument is I can't imagine that. I can't imagine having a kid and allowing myself to allow these cruel lessons to happen. And so I would fail dismally as a parent because I couldn't do it. I couldn't allow the necessary failures, the cruelties, the things that will really make them into a person of quality. And that's what you need. And so if you don't do all those things, your kid's going to be a fucking menacing retard.
Came to my mind. Because this is, this is the keys to disaster, right? There's nothing really good that can come of it. There's lots of downsides, and it's hard to see the positive side.
Well, I guess you could say that about procreation, so I'll assume that's what I was talking about. Yeah. Lots of downside risk and very little hope of anything, on the other side. I mean, success in the sense of what? When do you feel like they're safe? Is it ever going to happen where you feel like, oh, they're safe? No. So you're just stuck with worry for the rest of your life.
And with a bunch of pigs, it's still going to be a sty. And it's just going to be a...
Yeah, and so even if you do successfully build your machine of better character, look at the world it has to live in. The shitty, corrupt, filthy sty. So what have you done? You've made something clean and nice, and you're just going to force it to wallow in sewage. Bravo. What can you say, right? That's the best you can hope for as your wonderful outcome? Well, that's pretty terrible, frankly. You should be ashamed that you can't, do better than that. And you can't do better than that. Simple truth.
But imagine it as something purely good. So even if I could possibly imagine having a little mini inmendham, I could never think past its existence being anything other than a problem, not a solution.
Well, you know, he doesn't look all that dangerous. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, it's never safe, and it's going to be doing lots of things that are different than what you think it should be doing. It's going to be eating the wrong kind of cookies and doing all kinds of things that no, you don't want to do that, and so it's just going to be a problem.
Satisfying a need that doesn't need to exist.
Well, there's an old line. Flash from the past. Yeah.
And, that people feel satisfied with these kind of what I would call bizarre ways of gaining gratification. I'm trying to think of something they're proud of, and you're just saying, okay, so they're going to be proud of they have some ugly, crappy.
Okay, so I can pick up anything now. I think I was talking about a car, like, I don't know, some DeSoto or something. And, they go out there and polish it every day. And it's just an ugly, old, stupid looking piece of crap. And, they think, totally cool. And, you're just wondering, wow. So it's like those motorcycle shitheads, I talk about. There's a couple of them on this street. The loudest, just obscenely loud. And they go bombing down the street 60 miles an hour. They're your fucking neighbors. And they're showing off. Look how cool I am. And you're like, I just wish, they could read my thoughts and just recognize what a wad of shit I think they are. Oh, shit. I do apply the appropriate finger now and then, but they don't get the message.
And you were just some kind of outside agent, living among aliens. So maybe
yes, that's if you don't have some of that, I'd have to argue you're a sicko. So if you really think everything's just going just fine, and you're really, I get it, all of it, it all fits right into my plan of just how could the world be any better, then yeah, you're one fucked up piece of shit.
What you're going to create is going to be, as important as you. And you're really not setting it up to be a good game. It's going to have to play.
Yeah, so he talked about, the filthy nest that people are laying eggs in. They can't even fix that. They can't even make sure the thing ain't going to get eaten by maggots right from the start. So anyway, probably enough. I'll give one more. To bribe people out of their desire to procreate, and I guess I'm sort of arguing that it wouldn't take much. All I have to do is figure out what their fantasy is and tell them, I'll give you that. Yeah, so that's what the plan was really to talk about that subject, so it's in there, that I'm sort of, it'd be nice if we could play that game and see how really deep people's passion is for these principles of, life must go on and all this kind of crap, and how little I'd have to offer them to get them to sell out, to forsake on some notion that the world continues for, with humans on it forever and ever, that kind of crap, that there's any reason to have a future, where you make more of these confused, unsettled, sensitive organisms to play a insanely complicated and messy game. So, I mean, just complicated in terms of all the nuance of every sentence you have to make sure the right words are in it and they're in the right order, kind of complicated. That the tiniest little inflection, you know, your eyebrow lifted funny. Oops, you made a face. Yeah, you made a face. And everything went sideways because something reacted to some sort of nothing, you know, some sort of nuance, okay, that doesn't have anything to do with the subject. But anyway, yeah, so I think that's a video, frankly. And, yeah, it's hard for me to judge, you know, on what has meaning, you know, to you audience people. Yeah, you know, I don't get you. That is the truth, right? So most people I don't get. You know, I'm going to ask them, why are you wearing that? That looks ridiculous. You know, why is your hair? Look, I'm going to be constantly dissatisfied with their functionality. How can you stand that person? I mean, you're friends with that asshole? Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, so in attempting to bridge whatever gap there is, you know, this monstrous cavern of gap, you know, it's almost such a silly project that, you know, like there's a possibility that you could span this cavern. It's like building a bridge across the Atlantic Ocean or something. Oh, fuck, never gonna happen. But guess what? There's no choice. I have to try to do it. So, regardless of how futile it may be to attempt this communication between this personality and yours, and with the intent of getting to the part where you're actually doing thinking and talk about actual thoughts, yeah, really difficult. Okay, so anyway, yeah, enough of a video. All right. So, till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot. Oh, yeah. Face palm, the ultimate face palm. Yeah, I like that. It pleases me.